In a courtroom twist that left everyone in disbelief, Calvin Lloyd Griffith brought a unique brand of performance art to his hearing. Accused of swiping a Volkswagen Passat from the parking lot of Miami Edison Senior High, Griffith, a 30-year-old with a flair for the dramatic, decided to showcase his twerking skills right in front of the judge. Surveillance footage from the school had already done the job of connecting him to the crime. He was seen casually strolling through the hallways, snatching an employee's keys and driving off like he owned the place. By the time Griffith faced Judge Catherine Pooler, he was already up against a list of charges: burglary in an occupied dwelling, petite theft, grand theft auto, and trespassing in a school safety zone. Now, when Griffith took the stand, things took a turn.
Calvin Lloyd Griffin Jr. on page 12. Good morning. Mr. Griffin is charged with burglary, petty theft, grand theft of a vehicle, and trespass. And he's on probation.
He's out on probation, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm on probation. I'm on paper.
Okay.
Officer be in here anyway because I smoke weed and cocaine. So the officer... I smoke weed and cocaine.
The court official seemed not to waste time, so he had his microphone cut off.
So the officer...
Okay. You're Calvin Griffin?
Mr. Senator, is the button pressed?
But Griffith wasn't ready to be silenced. To everyone's surprise, he began twerking right there in the courtroom.
Your Honor.
But the judge? Not amused. Without missing a beat, she moved on, clearly unimpressed with his dance moves.
State is requesting that Your Honor set the bond, but reset the case in division tomorrow because his actions violate his probation.
Griffith's mother sat in the back, clutching a bag full of his prescription medications. Apparently, he'd been off them for a while. With a history of similar offenses, he was already on probation, and the judge wasn't taking any chances. She slapped an $18,000 bond on him and ordered him to stay behind bars until his next court appearance. Oh, and she made one thing crystal clear.
And there's a stay-away order from Miami Edison Senior High. If you should get out, do not go back there. You're not a student anymore. Okay?
As Judge Pooler prepared to move on to the next case, she couldn't resist a moment of lighthearted humor. With a wry smile and a quick glance around the courtroom, she remarked,
I want the last guy to come back and teach us how to dance. He's a pretty smooth guy.
Next up, we're heading to South Florida, where a rising young rapper found himself at the center of a dramatic courtroom showdown. Jamel Demons, better known by his stage name YNW Melly, was on trial for double murder, accused of killing two of his closest friends back in 2018. The victims? Fellow YNW rappers Christopher Thomas Jr., also known as YNW Juvie, and Anthony Williams, known as YNW Sack Chaser. Prosecutors allege that Melly, along with another friend, staged the scene to look like a drive-by shooting. To bolster their case, they aim to gather testimonies from those present at the recording studio on the night of the murders, hoping to uncover any conflicts between Melly, Juvie, and Sack Chaser, or to poke holes in Melly's defense, claiming he wasn't in the car when the shooting happened. One key witness was Trevion Glass, who testified that Melly had suspiciously changed clothes from the time before the killings to when he saw them afterward. During his cross-examination, Glass found himself in a humorous back-and-forth with Melly's attorney, adding an unexpected cheerfulness to the otherwise grim proceedings.
You smoke a lot of marijuana, right?
Possibly.
Well, you smoke it anytime you get a chance, I think is how you phrase it.
It's your answer. Yeah.
That was your answer.
I smoke when I smoke.
You smoke when you smoke?
Yeah.
And when's that?
When I smoke.
And when was that?
When I smoke.
You didn't see any friction at the studio that night of any magnitude?
I did it.
You did?
I did it.
Okay, you did. With respect to your daily marijuana regimen, did you smoke before you came here today?
I did not.
Okay. I have nothing. Thank you.
I should have.
That final line.
Thank you.
I should have.
Brought laughter throughout the courtroom. briefly easing the tension in a very serious trial. But despite this lighthearted exchange, the trial took a more unexpected turn. The jury, unable to reach a unanimous decision on the double murder charges, forced the judge to declare a mistrial. As a result, a new trial for YNW Melly was set for October 2023. In the Broward County Bond Court in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the case of 80-year-old Dolores Shinus quickly turned from serious to unexpectedly entertaining. Dolores had been arrested for resisting arrest after violating a restraining order filed by her ex-husband, but she wasn't going down without making an impression. Right from the start, Dolores took center stage with her sharp wit.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Shinus, Abraham Arthur Shinus, and I have been legally divorced for 31 years, and I had to pay.
She began, clearly ready to argue her case. She went on, explaining how they both lived at the same address, 20B, and how her ex-husband seemed to think that paying for the apartment gave them the right to do whatever he pleased.
We both resided at 20 Bend, and he paid for the apartment entirely. His assumption is because he paid for the apartment, he's entitled to do as he pleases.
Judge John Hurley, however, was quick to clarify the court's position by trying to keep things on track.
I can't get in the middle of who owns the apartment.
I know, that's not the point.
My
The point I'm
is,
telling you,
I need to keep you away from it.
But that did not stop Dolores.
I haven't bothered him for 31 years. Why would I bother him now?
Judge Hurley, not particularly keen on keeping an elderly woman in jail, decided to release Dolores on a personal recognizance bond, with strict instructions to stay away from her ex-husband.
Not allowed to call him, text him, email him. You are to stay 500 feet from him at all times. That's where he lives, where he works, anywhere in between. Ma'am, you're getting a second chance on this case. I don't particularly feel like keeping an 80-year-old woman in the jail who has no criminal record. But this is your second warning. Don't go around him again.
Dolores, with her dramatic flair, went ahead and made a promise.
Swear to God and all that's Tony on a stack of Bibles, I will never go near him, talk to him, call him, or...
But amused, Judge Hurley couldn't resist poking a little fun.
I swear on besides the Bibles?
All that's holy.
What?
I don't remember.
Oh.
What?
All that's holy.
What?
All that's holy. Yeah.
Oh, all that's holy. Yes, sir. I didn't recognize your twang.
With a grin, Judge Hurley asked,
Ma'am, have you ever thought of doing a stand-up routine?
and her response was hilarious.
I did. Well, if you pay me good money, sweetheart, I'll be there. I'm really short of funds.
Ma'am, I gotta tell you something. You seem like you have a great wit about you.
I do, sir.
Yeah, so...
I mean, sweetheart, that's the only thing I have.
I've been called sweetheart in this courtroom.
Does that mean you're taking me for breakfast?
Let me ask you something, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
How have I done as a judge today? So far, how am I doing?
Not bad, but you could do better.
Can we get a drum roll with this?
As the courtroom filled with laughter, Judge Hurley went ahead and admitted something about Dolores. But then, without missing a beat, Dolores delivered her final punchline.
So you brightened my day, ma'am. All right?
That's what the last guy said, and then he sued me.
The courtroom erupted in laughter, and Judge Hurley wrapped up the hearing, clearly amused by Dolores' unexpected stand-up performance.
I'd like to provide the defendant and the court with copies.
So that had to be said. So it's the defendant.
That's not how it was said.
That was how it said. You want to run the record back?
Mr. Brooks.
So I'm the only one. I got one.
Mr.
I got one
Brooks.
ear that work, and I heard that.
This is.
On November 21st, 2021, Daryl Brooks made headlines in one of the most horrific ways imaginable. At around 4:39 p.m. Central Standard Time, the 39-year-old drove a red 2010 Ford Escape SUV through barricades and straight into the annual Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Witnesses watched in horror as the vehicle, moving at about 40 miles per hour, sped past an officer who frantically banged on the hood, desperately trying to get him to stop. But Brooks wasn't stopping. Instead, he drove with chilling determination through the crowd, striking down parade goers in a terrifying zigzag pattern, hitting as many people as possible. The entire rampage, which left 6 people dead and 62 others injured, was caught on live stream and quickly spread across social media. Daryl Brooks faced an overwhelming 76 charges, including multiple counts of homicide and reckless endangerment. Each homicide charge alone carried a mandatory life sentence, and each reckless endangerment charge threatened up to 17.5 years in prison. According to investigators, Brooks had driven onto the parade route after fleeing a domestic dispute with his ex-girlfriend. Yet, in a bizarre twist, police confirmed they were not actively pursuing him at the time of the incident. At his trial, the evidence was damning. Videos showed Brooks' red SUV plowing through the parade, and witnesses identified him behind the wheel. The victims included 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, who was marching with his baseball team, and 3 members of the Dancing Grannies, a beloved group of grandmothers who performed at local parades. Brooks, however, chose to represent himself, dismissing his public defenders just days before the trial began. He had initially pleaded not guilty by reason of mental disease, but then, without explanation, withdrew that plea. Psychologists deemed him competent to stand trial, but Brooks's behavior was anything but typical. Throughout the proceedings, he was frequently disruptive, refusing to acknowledge his own name, muttering about the trial's fairness, and objecting to nearly every question posed by the prosecution. Judge Jennifer Doro, who presided over the case, had to remove Brooks from the courtroom multiple times due to his erratic conduct. He built makeshift forts out of evidence boxes, waved his arms on camera, and refused to cooperate, all while claiming to be a sovereign citizen and objecting to being addressed by his legal name. The courtroom exchanges often veered into the bizarre, with Brooks challenging every aspect of the proceedings. In the end, Daryl Brooks was convicted on all 76 charges. His sentence? 6 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 700 years in prison.
All right, Nelson Walker. There you are.
Nelson Walker is quite possibly the Miami Dolphins' most devoted fan, or at least the most notorious. He's the kind of guy who proudly wears a Dolphins jersey out in public without hiding under a paper bag. In fact, when Walker showed up in court, he was still rocking his aqua jersey, even though he was facing charges for, ironically enough, trying to steal 2 Dolphins jerseys and a hat from Sun Life Stadium after Sunday's game. According to NBC Miami, Walker, 40, and his accomplice, 49-year-old James A. Hanna, were caught red-handed, or perhaps jersey-handed. The pair had allegedly stuffed the team merch down their pants and attempted to make a quick getaway without paying the $301.74 tab. Unfortunately for them, they didn't make it far. The police stopped them as they hustled towards the parking lot. When Walker appeared in court the next day, Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Diane Ward noticed something odd. He was wearing a Dolphins jersey.
All right, you're charged with stealing a Dolphin jersey?
With a bemused expression, she asked Walker to show the name on his jersey. Walker, quick on his feet, pointed to his jersey.
This ain't the one, young.
No?
No, ma'am. It show on that I ain't took no jersey. I ain't took no jersey.
Judge Ward, perhaps trying to stifle a smile, turned to the public defender, who brought up a potential flaw in the case.
Public defender?
As to Mr. Walker, respectfully, Your Honor, we're going to be raising probable cause.
As to what?
As to this being a felony. Because the allegations are an observation of observing the defendant and co-defendant put on a Dolphin hats. The officer says A and then says hats, so there's an issue as to whether it's 2 hats or...
Walker, sensing an opportunity, chimed in with newfound enthusiasm.
The officer says A and then says hats, so there's an issue as to whether it's 2 hats or 1 hat.
But Walker's attempt at finding a loophole didn't quite impress Judge Ward. With 29 prior felonies on his record, sympathy was in short supply. She set his bond at $5,000. Weeks later, the Miami-Dade prosecutors opted not to pursue charges against Walker, and he was released from custody. But before he could celebrate his newfound freedom, Judge Ward delivered a final verdict with a wry twist. Walker was officially banned from Dolphin Stadium, perhaps not seeing his beloved team play in person is punishment enough. For a fan as diehard as Walker, that might just be the harshest penalty of all. In a Miami courtroom, Judge Nushin Safi saw a familiar name flash across her bond hearing docket: Johnny Ray Smith Jr. With a sigh of exasperation, she greeted him with a hint of disbelief.
Johnny Ray Smith Jr. Oh my God.
Smith, no stranger to Judge Safi, launched into his explanation before she could even settle in.
The same charges, that same baby mama, she did the same thing that the wife did. I left the house like you.
In that earlier encounter, Smith had disclosed a rather staggering detail. He had fathered more than 30 children. With a sheepish grin, Smith continued.
Remember she was pregnant and she had another kid, so I'm at 40 now.
And that's your argument? Wait, that's your argument for you want me to let you out?
No, not that. No, listen.
Do you remember that birth control lecture I gave you back when you only had 31 kids?
Listen to you, listen. I swear I listen to you. I just moved out. I stay on my own. I got a new girlfriend. That's what she mad about.
I don't blame her.
But listen, I left. I never went back to the house. I never called.
You didn't listen to anything I said.
No, I did. I left. You
but
told me to leave.
Also, no more kids.
Smith insisted, but his charges today told a different story. Criminal mischief and burglary related to yet another mother of some of his children. Judge Safi, growing increasingly impatient, cut in.
Your Honor, I was...
Mr. Smith, how about if you be quiet for a minute?
Okay, no problem.
Try doing that for 1 minute, if you can.
All right.
With the courtroom now holding its breath, Judge Safi reviewed the case file. A public defender chimed in.
History with Mr. Smith and knowledge of Mr. Smith, as well as the allegations before the court at this point in
Just
time.
make it clear that my history with him is as a judge.
Mr. Smith.
You're not staying there, correct?
I did exactly what you told me. I left. No.
Mr. Smith, just
Ditched
answer
her with
yes
2
or no.
kids. Can I put him on vasectomy?
Please don't do it.
Judge Safi weighs her options and issues the next step.
Bracelet.
You finna do me like that again? That was torture last time.
You're not going to have to post a bond. You're going to be on a bracelet.
Thank you.
Before concluding the hearing, she delivered a final, stern warning.
If you come back with any other baby mamas, I'm going to revoke your bond and keep you in jail. Condoms, use them.
Okay.
As we continue our recap of the courtroom's most memorable moments, let's take a look at the trial of the now infamous Alec Murda. Once a respected South Carolina lawyer, Murda found himself accused of the unthinkable: the murders of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, at their country estate in 2021. The prosecution had a clear narrative in Alec Murda's trial. They argued that Murda killed his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, to cover up a web of financial crimes that spanned years. Crimes he shockingly admitted to in court. Over 6 weeks, jurors listened to testimonies from dozens of witnesses in South Carolina. Some brought forward new evidence, while others offered emotional accounts of the events surrounding the murders. The gruesome killings took place on the night of June 7, 2021, at the dog kennels on the Murda family's sprawling hunting estate known as Moselle. For the next 20 months, Alec Murda consistently told law enforcement that he hadn't been near the dog kennels that evening, insisting he was at home napping. But a crucial piece of evidence would soon dismantle his alibi: a Snapchat video filmed by Paul just moments before the shootings. The video, captured at the kennels, featured Alec Murda's voice in the background, proving he was there when he had sworn he wasn't. When Murda took the stand, he confessed that he had lied. He attributed the deception to his years-long addiction to painkillers, claiming it had left him in a state of paranoia. Yet, prosecutors were quick to leverage this admission, painting Murda as an experienced liar, skilled in manipulation and deceit. As this marathon of a trial neared its end, just before the jury got the case, a surprising twist unfolded. Judge Clifton Newman had to dismiss a juror amidst reports that she might have been discussing the case outside the courthouse. A serious no-no in any trial. To play it safe, Judge Newman decided to excuse her and bring in an alternate juror. Now, this juror wasn't identified, and you won't see her on camera in the clip we're about to show, but you'll certainly remember what she brought to her court.
All the parties involved, we're going to replace you with one of the other jurors. Have you brought everything that you have outside of, you left some stuff in there? What do you have in there?
A dozen eggs.
Say it again?
A dozen eggs.
A dozen eggs?
One of the other jurors brought in eggs for everybody.
Oh, okay.
Eggs, my purse, and water.
All right, well, you're gonna leave the eggs. You wanna leave the eggs or take the eggs? You're gonna take the eggs. So, Mr. Bailiff, can you retrieve from the jury room her dozen eggs, her purse, and what else? And a bottle of water. If you can get those things from the jury room. So they're gonna get your things, and then once you're removed from the jury, you can't go back in the jury room. We'll have to tell them goodbye for you. Okay, all right, well, thank you very much. You can go, thank you. We get a lot of interesting things, but now a dozen eggs. It's certainly pretty interesting.
Now, we've seen a lot of unusual things in the courtroom, but a dozen eggs? That's a new one. Maybe she was planning on making breakfast for the jury during deliberations. Now that would have been a morale booster. Though, come to think of it, aren't eggs supposed to be refrigerated? That part's a bit concerning. But all jokes aside, jury duty is tough. It's hard to be dismissed after sitting through hours of evidence, and this was an especially challenging case. Ultimately, the jury that remained had a difficult task ahead. After careful deliberation, they found Alec Murda guilty of murdering his wife and son, a tragic end to a story filled with unexpected turns.
Oh boy.
In the Broward County Bond Court in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Judge John Hurley found himself presiding over a bond hearing for Timothy Dio, a 34-year-old rock musician with a knack for causing a scene. Dio faced charges of petty theft and damage to property after allegedly trying to steal nutritional supplements and causing a ruckus when confronted by store staff. But as the hearing began, it was clear that this wouldn't be your typical court proceeding. Judge Hurley tried to kick things off with a standard question.
Somebody, wait, what?
But before he could finish, Dio jumped in, eager to explain himself.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
You know me, don't you?
No.
And just like that, the courtroom took a sharp left turn. Dio, without wasting time, launched into an animated monologue.
To pick up my strips, they said it was a 45-minute wait for some reason. I'm walking around shopping. I go to the bathroom to take a piss and wash my hands, and the manager's in there waiting for me, thinking I'm shoplifting. I wasn't shoplifting anything.
No?
No. My First, Second, Third, Fourth, 13th, 14th Amendment rights have been violated.
Judge Hurley, visibly taken aback, tried to regain control, but Dio's outburst suggested he was no stranger to the courtroom. The prosecutor jumped in to shed some light on Dio's recent history.
Your Honor, if I may, two things worth noting. Mr. DiMatteo was arrested September 14th of this year at a Mexican restaurant, where allegedly he ran up a bill for $256.26. He refused to leave or pay for his tab. Additionally, on September 29th of this year, he was placed on 18 months probation for grand theft.
As Judge Hurley reviewed the details, Dio grew even more agitated, waving his hand in a desperate attempt to speak again.
Wait, no,
Your Honor.
Stop. It's not your turn.
But he was muted again, undeterred and now silenced. Dio decided to get creative. He began tapping out a beat on the table in front of him, turning his frustration into an impromptu drum solo. The courtroom was momentarily transformed into a chaotic concert hall. Dale Miller, Dio's public defender seemed both amused and annoyed.
I think he's trying to give him an opportunity to calm down, Judge.
Ultimately, the courtroom concert is cut short as Dio was removed from the courtroom by security. Later, Dio was brought back in, noticeably calmer. He pled guilty to the petty theft charge and was ordered to pay $293 in restitution, and the charge for property damage was dropped. Thanks for joining us for these unforgettable courtroom moments. We hope you had as much fun watching as we did bringing them to you. But trust us, there are even more wild and hilarious stories to come. So make sure to stay tuned for part 2, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.